in this contrast to the bride, there's the harlot. And it's time to depart. Literally, literally, guys, we're about to depart. But until that day, we need to get out of her. It's time. It's time to get out of her, you know? Um, and so Revelation 18:4, come out of her, my people, that you may not be partakers of her sin, and that you receive not of her plagues. Revelation 17 and 18 are parenthetical chapters. There's a lot of these chapters that are in vignettes inside of the book of Revelation. Revelation has a chronological order, but it also has these chapters that give more detail to an event or a topic. So Revelation 17 and 18, and we went over these actually in our Revelation story, Revelation study. They are toward the end of the book of Revelation, but the events begin early. Actually, the harlot goes all the way back to Genesis, which we're going to look at. The warning from God for his people to come out of her is an early warning. Toward the end of tribulation, those belonging to God have already divided themselves from spiritual and economic Babylon. They're already out of her by the end. So this happens threefold. Number one, the rapture, that's our departure. That's when God literally says, come out of her, and we leave her. The tribulation saints are going to be literally living in this world system, but they're told to be separate from it. They literally have to be separated from the economy of it. They will not be able to buy and sell unless they take the mark, and then they're no longer a tribulation saint. Believing Israel at the midpoint of the tribulation will exodus to the wilderness. They will depart from her. God will take them. Remember, we talked about this maybe about a month ago, how they will literally fly away at the midpoint of the tribulation. On eagle's wings, God will take them and they'll go to the wilderness. And we see that in Revelation 12, a picture of that too. So how do we come out of her? Now, they won't literally fly away like an eagle wing won't. That's not what I mean, but they'll be rushing. They'll be flying as far as their flight, just like in Exodus. God flew them to the wilderness. Again, that will happen in this Exodus during the tribulation. So how do we come out of her before the rapture? So first, we got to know who she is. We got to, I think the one reason why, because God says my people need to come out of her, that's because his people are in her. His people are in the world system. And first, in order to get out of her, you got to know what she is. You got to understand our enemy is smart. Babylon is nothing new. This harlot religious and governing system has been influencing and leading the masses away from God. And understand, it's not just the obvious. I mean, Satan is not a little red guy with horns and a pitchfork. That'd be easy to avoid. He masquerades as an angel of light. He looks like light, false light. Satan doesn't change his tactics. He banks on the masses remaining willfully ignorant, and they do. Matthew 13:15, for the heart of this people has become dull. With their ears they scarcely hear, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise they would see with their eyes. They would hear with their ears and understand with their heart and return, and I would heal them. We're just the same as Israel. So Romans 1:28, and just as they did not see fit to acknowledge God any longer, God gave them over to a depraved mind to do the things which are not proper. And that's what happens. We harden our hearts first, and then over time, God will harden the heart of man, and they become depraved. So a quick review here. Babylon's beginning after the flood. Nimrod, Noah's great-grandson, became an influential leader. He is the first Antichrist type. And there are many right now. In the Bible, we read that he was a mighty hunter before God, which actually means he was in the face or in opposition before God. So he is credited with building ancient Babylon. The Tower of Babel was a city to try to really everybody come together and be unified and be protected from God flooding the earth again was the purpose of it. So for the sake of understanding Babylon the Great from Revelation 17 and 18, because in Babylon the Great, Mystery Babylon, you see religion and government entwined. That's nothing new, and it's not just one nation that does it, it's every nation does it. And they've done it throughout all time. We need to not fall for it because it's nothing new. Nimrod's wife was Semiramis, and she became the queen of heaven. How many people call Mary the queen of heaven? That's just Semiramis. It's still goddess worship today. Mary, by the way, would be horrified to think people are worshiping her, praying to her. Goddess worship traces all the way back to Semiramis, and not just goddess worship, but the virgin child cults go all the way back. So this is important because goddess worship has infiltrated much of the world and even into Christianity. So when Nimrod died, to keep her power, Semiramis claimed that the sun's rays, sun worship, had impregnated her and she had a virgin birth. And the reincarnated Nimrod, the sun god, um, Tammuz, the fertility god, was the baby. So you have the unholy trinity going all the way back to Genesis. And so when we look at the Tower of Babel, we see the first one world government ran by a tyrant who was claiming to be God. And it was a religion and one world religion, one world government, and one. Satan is doing the same thing. It's the same tactic. 6,000, well, what, how many years later? 5,000 years later or so. So the unholy trinity of Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. We see Satan's end goal in Genesis. Right from the beginning, Satan's goal was to liberate mankind from following God and instead enslave them to himself. So, and he'll have this for the last 3.5 years of the tribulation. For the last 42 months, he is given complete power over everything. So the first 3.5 years, Babylon is still the Babylonian rule. Babylon's rule is shifting away from this world system. And we see that the ten kings come to power along with the Antichrist for that short season in the tribulation. They come to power at the same time. And they hate Babylon. This might be a key to the identity not only of Babylon, but of the 10 kings. They hate her. And God puts it in their heart to destroy her with fire, and they do. So even now, most of mankind is bowing down to Babylon and even to her false worship, and most people just don't realize it. And we find this false worship in paganism, New Age, earth worship, Catholicism, the Christian cults. It's even there in Islam. Every religion that is not putting your faith alone in Jesus is all from that same Babylonian origin. That's how they can all come together and coexist after we're gone. So ecumenicalism is the ploy. What do you see at the Abrahamic family house? They have a position in the Abrahamic family house called coexistence. It's about everybody coming together. Compromise truth for the greater good. That's never okay. That's done a lot for politics. Compromise truth for the greater good. God will never, ever do that. He will never put his stamp of approval on that. So tracing Satan from Eden to today, tracing his tactics. So Satan wants to be like God. And he falls from his position as the most powerful angel. He's a covering cherubim, a mighty, mighty, powerful, beautiful creature God created him to be. But he fell because he wanted to be like God. It wasn't enough. Satan attacks God's creation by tempting Eve with the very same desire, same lie that we could be like God. And she fell. Creation fell. The same lie is still strong today that you're a little God. You can ascend to being your own God. You've got God inside, all that that's all the same lie that you are your own God. But God makes a promise that he will restore mankind and creation through the seed of woman. So God sees his perfect creation has been vandalized, and he makes a promise that he's going to go in and he is going to restore it. Satan, it's like a tit for tat. It's a chess game, but God is a master chess player and Satan is a 2-year-old. That's what it is. But Satan infiltrates God's plan. He has the fallen angels, the Nephilim. The fallen angels go into women and they corrupt the line. Their goal is to completely corrupt mankind to where there's nobody for the Messiah to come into because they've all been polluted. That's the Nephilim were real. The giants were real, but God chooses a man who is perfect, literally intact in his DNA, in his generations. Noah to save the world, and God destroys the corrupted man through the flood, and he starts over with 8 from the ark. And so he destroys the polluted bloodlines. There's still some left over. We know that from the Bible. There's still some, and still been in the background all the time. So, but Satan uses the grandson of Noah, Nimrod, to rebel again against God and to build an empire to oppose him. The first united world government and united religion opposing God happens through Noah's grandson. How wicked is that? The enemy just goes for the jugular. But God confuses the languages of all the people and he scatters them. Babylon, he scatters them, putting an end to man's first world government. And he calls out Abraham from the pagan world to reveal himself to. So God chose a man, Abraham, a family, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and a people, the 12 tribes of Israel. That's Jacob. That's why what we're about to, well, not we're going to be gone, but what the world's about to go into is Jacob's trouble because it's all going back to Israel. God still has to finish what he started with them. They have 1 week, 7 years left. So now Satan could see the object of God's promises. The line of Messiah would be through Jacob, would be through Israel. So he sets his focus on attacking, infiltrating, and destroying the line of Messiah, Israel. So we see throughout the Old Testament that Satan did just that. He lured Israel into playing the harlot against God. Repeatedly, she fell for it. Again, Satan doesn't have to change his tactics because people stay ignorant on purpose. So to be like the other nations, Israel would pursue their gods. And mind you, these are the same gods from Babylon. Queen of Heaven, Semiramis, Tammuz, Nimrod. They have different names, some of them, but they are the same gods from Babylon that Israel played the harlot with against God. Again, Satan is just wicked. God judged Israel for this sin. And in Ezekiel and Jeremiah, God showed these prophets why Babylon, remember, it all goes back to Babylon. She's been there all along. Why Babylon would take Judah. Because this contrasted with the false prophets. Just like the false prophets of today, there's nothing new under the sun. The false prophets of the day were proclaiming prosperity, itching ears. They were proclaiming, no, this is a time of fortunes being brought back. No, no, no. Nebuchadnezzar isn't going to get us. Instead, there's going to be a wealth transfer. I mean, all this, there's nothing new under the sun. The same lies, the false prophets, you just check them off. The same lies the false prophets are saying today, they said then, and they're in the Bible. You read the book of Jeremiah, and it's like, oh my goodness. These are the same people. The same lying spirit is in their mouth. So, anyway, I get frustrated with them. But the same happening today. It's the same thing. Nothing new under the sun because people are willfully ignorant of the enemy's devices. So they keep falling for it. But the very same pagan gods that began in Babylon were the ones that Israel is worshiping now in the face of God. Here, God's wife, Israel. We looked at this. He proposed to her. He brought her out of Egypt. He he made her his, and she is playing the harlot with Babylon. So the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, would be the nation that would come and execute judgment on Judah. And they would go into captivity for 70 years. And, that 70, oh man, we can just go because there's just so much there that they would then have 70 weeks till the end of their time. And we're waiting on that last week. So man's world kingdoms began with Babylon at the Tower of Babylon. And then when the nation of Babylon, led by Nebuchadnezzar, man's last kingdom is described as working hand in hand with Babylon, the harlot riding on the beast, false religious system. For the past 2,000 years, Satan has perfected both counterfeit and infiltration. He has counterfeited. He's got all these counterfeit gospels. They just don't fully trust in Jesus. He's infiltrated the church. He is smarter than we give him credit for. And he's hiding in broad daylight, and he's becoming more and more bold because it's time. He knows his time is short. We're right there. So the harlot today, the harlot is ecumenical. Let's all get along. We can compromise truth for politics, for our cause, because the cause is more important than truth. That's the harlot. The truth, Jesus, God, His word, everlasting, His kingdom is in no way, shape, or form ecumenical. Jesus is the only way to the Father. And He is jealous because He doesn't want people to go to hell. He knows all other ways lead to hell. This is the minority view, even among professing Christians. Even among professing Christians, most of them do not believe that Jesus is really the only way. Well, I wonder how many of them are actually Christians, because that's kind of what a Christian is understanding that Jesus is the only way. So the truth, Jesus is God. He is not an angel. He is not a ascended master. He is the creator who put on flesh to dwell among his creation and pay the penalty for our sin. That's how good he is. That's what our God did. We are not God, and we never will be. There's no ascending to a God state. There's no being a God of your own little planet. All that is false religion. All that's religion. But a relationship with Jesus is we're never going to be God. And we don't want to be. We just want to be in his presence. Jesus alone is the only way to eternal life. It's just him. He is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's why the world hates Israel so much. That's why there's so much anti-Semitism. That's why there's so many people saying, well, Israel isn't really Israel, and God is done with Israel. No. Literally, his name is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jesus is the only intercessor to God the Father, not the Pope. Listen, the Pope isn't even a Christian. I will be bold enough to say it. Jesus is about to come back. If you're following the Pope, get out of her. Get out of Babylon. Not Mary. Mary's not an intercessor. Mary would be horrified to know people are praying to her. No saints. There is no intercessor but Jesus alone. He is the one who will help you. Jesus is the one who will fix and heal the world. It's him. Governments will not, cannot do it. Read the Bible. God is so clear that the world governments are all controlled by the enemy, and they're going to continue doing their thing until Jesus, the mountain, the stone made without human hands, made without humans, will come and completely obliterate all the governments of mankind. He's the one that fixes and heals the world. The world is healed from the living water coming from the temple after the tribulation. Governments aren't going to do it, so stop wasting your time with that. No political leader, no party should be put up on a pedestal. As soon as there is one that starts to do these amazing things, that's the Antichrist. Okay? Come on. The church is not here to take over the seven mountains of anything. That, again, is heresy. We're here to share Jesus and glorify him. It is interesting that the harlot sits on seven mountains. We got to know our place, and we got to think about things from a biblical point of view. So God's call is to come out of this system now. He's waking people up, he's shifting people, and he's telling us, come out. This system is wicked. Come to me. Revelation 18:4 again. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that you may not be partakers of her sins, and that you receive not her plagues. So if God is warning his people to come out of her, then some of his people are in her. And he's warning us to separate from spiritual Babylon. In the Old Testament, he warned his people to separate from physical Babylon. As Israel had been, he told his people to go to Babylon for their protection. Israel had been held captive in Babylon for 70 years. And when it was time to return home to Jerusalem, God told them to flee because it was time to go home. Guys, we are almost home. This is his call to them then. Flee from Babylon, run for your lives. Do not be destroyed because of her sins. It's time for the Lord's vengeance. He will repay her for what she deserves. She cannot be healed. Let us leave her and each go to our own land, for her judgment reaches to the skies. It rises as high as the heavens. Come out of her, my people. Run for your lives. Run from the fierce anger of the Lord. Now, that's a parallel today. The world cannot be healed until Jesus does it, and Babylon will not be saved. Now, at the time of Jesus' return, we hear the same words, come out of her. So what does this mean? For us, the rapture is going to be that physical removal or exodus for all believers. We're about to come out of her by God's call. This is going to rescue us from sudden destruction that's going to come during the tribulation. When they say peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them, not us. I think we actually may be the sudden destruction in our departure. Until Jesus comes to rapture his bride, we cannot physically leave Babylon because she's everywhere. But we can separate ourselves out from being a part of apostasy and false worship and false teaching. It's a challenge. We need to live in God's word. We're not of the world. We're here to feed the sheep and not entertain goats. So we are ambassadors of a far better kingdom. Okay? This is not our home. After the rapture, as Israel and the nations receive Jesus, they must stay separated from the world for survival. Israel and the tribulation saints, they're going to have to stay separated from this world and even this world's economy. Those who take the mark of the beast have forever made their choice. There is no redemption for someone who takes the mark. So, could this be the last call for believers to come in before the coming destruction? And I believe it is. I believe this is a last call shift of identity where people are realizing the wickedness and want to come out as a result of that. That's my prayer. So, what if this latest call for peace and security to divide God's land is when sudden destruction comes? What if sudden destruction comes next week? What if we're departed and we're rescued next week or now? I mean, let it happen today, perhaps today. I believe that it is the departure of the bride that very well could be the sudden destruction, or at least happens maybe in tandem with it. Um, Regardless, Mystery Babylon will fall soon into the tribulation. So what happens to her? What happens to Babylon? In Revelation 18, we read about her destruction. And I think this is important. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death, mourning, and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judges her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour the judgment came, and the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, for no man buys their merchandise anymore. The merchandise, and it lists a bunch of merchandise, but what really stood out for me, slaves and souls of men. You know, that's literally happening. I mean, not only the depravity of the world and souls of men, but people are literally being sold as slaves. The destruction of Babylon comes suddenly. In Revelation 17, we see the 10 kings of the beast that she is riding are going to turn on her and destroy her with fire. And right here, Revelation 18:8, we see what happens. They hate her, but they use her until the opportunity arises to take her out. So the world is going to mourn her. Don't miss that. This is a clue that her destruction happens before the Great Tribulation, happens toward the beginning of the tribulation period or during that first 3.5 years. The global destruction during the Great Tribulation would seem to overshadow this easily. We also see that Babylon is a trade center, and the world is made wealthy from her as a consumer, not as a producer. So this is a clue that Babylon is multifaceted. She's a harlot, um, destroying the world morally. And also, this is the seat of power at the end. And so we see the harlot in chapter 17, but in 18, she's described more as a city and a nation that's polluted the world morally and economically. So we can trace Babylon throughout time. And we see that it's always been where the seat of power has been, from Nebuchadnezzar being the head all the way to Mystery Babylon being the feet, being the legs down to the feet. So it's where the seat of that power has moved geographically over time, but it's always been this entity. So this is how she is a mystery and holds the sin of all the nations through her seat of influence. She's moved geographically over time. It's so interesting to note and remember that all throughout time, man has joined religion and government together. Kings were considered God. Even today, major governments have their religion that they push. So heaven's response, the world mourns her. Heaven, rejoice over her, you heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged her on you. Or you on her, sorry, has avenged you on her. So heaven is not mourning the destruction of Babylon. The full weight of her evil, of her corruption, of the souls that are in hell because of her is fully realized in heaven. We all rejoice at her destruction. So this is a reminder that even the world governments and religious movements, they're not flesh and blood, but they're spiritual in their origin. And so we're not fighting people. Keep that in mind. We are not fighting people. Our fight isn't not, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this world's darkness, and against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly realms. Ephesians 6:12. So you got to keep that in our mind. And so God's millstone, what happens to her? We see here in Revelation 18:21, and a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down and shall be found no more at all. God destroys her with something amazing. Maybe it's a meteor. Maybe it's that mountain that comes down from heaven. But she's completely destroyed with a great millstone. So this is interesting when you look at Jesus's words in Luke 17:2. It would be better for him that a millstone were hanged around his neck and he cast into the sea than that he should offend one of these little ones. The very punishment that Jesus calls out for those that hurt children or abuse children or mislead children to not know Jesus. That is the punishment that Babylon will experience. Babylon has offended God. She deceived his children. Not only that, she has tormented, abused in horrid ways, and destroyed multitudes of little ones. Think about all those aborted. Think about the trafficking that's happened. Um, the Epstein files may have just been brushed away. No one's getting away with anything. It would be better if those evil men and women that were a part of that had a millstone around their neck than what they're going to have to endure because they're going to have to stand before God. None of them are getting away with anything. Praise God. But he's the one that avenges, not me. And I'm thankful for that because I get really angry about that kind of thing, as we should. So Babylon is an ancient enemy, a religious harlot, and a current city nation all in one is Babylon. That's the mystery. This ancient enemy system has been used by Satan from Genesis to trap mankind through governments and religion all throughout history, to deceive and divide. Today, she's physically embodied in at least one, if not multiple cities and nations. And of course, we see the religious aspect of Babylon. So I read this in Proverbs and I thought it was just really fitting. The Lord has made everything for its purpose, even the wicked for the day of trouble. Everyone who is arrogant in heart is an abomination to the Lord, and be assured he will not go unpunished. So we can trust our Abba. And, we don't need to be distracted. We need to come out of her. The longer we're here, the bolder Babylon is going to be against the truth. The more apostate the false church is going to become, and the stranger and more hated those who follow the Jesus of the Bible are going to look to the world. While we watch and wait for Jesus, we need to come out of her and stay out of her. Stay out of her. It's one thing this past week has been troubling to me because people that were coming out of her are going back in her. No, stay out of her. God has been helping us to do this, and these shakings in the world are to help us release our death grip on this system and on this order. This world is not our home. We're ambassadors of a far better kingdom. Our job isn't to save this world. We know what's about to happen. I mean, the Bible tells us our job isn't to make the world heaven. Only God will do that. Our job is to share Jesus so more people are rescued out of her before the door closes to our wedding. That's our job. And so we keep our eye on our job. And I hope you guys were encouraged. This is heavy, but I think our encouragement is that we make sure our identity shift is that we come out of her. Because guys, we're about to literally come out of her. We're about to depart. And we don't need to be distracted or diverted or divided against ourselves. We need to be focused on our King and bringing in more brothers and sisters. So I hope this was encouraging. God willing, I'll see you next week, or maybe we'll just see each other in the air before then, which would be even better. So God bless you guys.